Today we're sitting down with Andrew, who's learning what it means to let go. And over the last year, Andrew stepped away from a role that once defined him, and he's entered a season of unknowns and discovered peace in the pause. He's been learning to hear God again, trust in the waiting, and pay attention to where the Spirit is leading. So whether you're between jobs, facing uncertainty, or trying to figure out what's next, we hope that this conversation will encourage you to walk faithfully even when the path feels unclear. That sound pretty good? That sound pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
All right, so just so people can get to know a little bit more about who Andrew is, help me by telling me, would you rather be at a live sporting event or a live concert?
I'd say live concert.
Live concert. Okay, have you been to a concert recently?
Cody Johnson.
Okay.
Yep.
And was that local or was that?
That was, local.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good show?
It was great.
Yeah.
He was really good.
So, all right, how about this or that? Would you rather be golfing or landscaping?
Golfing.
Golfing? Yeah.
That's tough. Golfing.
And I know you were sharing with me when we talked earlier that you've been kind of dabbling in some cooking. All right, so would you rather grill dinner or cook inside?
Grill.
All right, I'm not if it's like super hot outside.
Yeah, I'm still not there from the cooking side. I'm better griller,
Better
so
griller,
more
yeah.
comfortable.
What's your grill of choice? Do you have a?
I really enjoy grilling barbecue chicken or steaks.
Yeah.
I would say those are my two go-tos.
Those are two go-to. How's Sydney feel about those? Is she?
She seems to like them.
She's like.
Yeah. At least that's what she says.
That's what she says. All right, so how about the worst household chore that you have to do? Is it doing the dishes or doing laundry, if you had to pick?
I've grown to really enjoy laundry, so I'll go dishes.
All right, go dishes. What do you enjoy about laundry? I'm really curious.
Seeing them all folded after the fact,
Yeah.
just feels like success.
Feels like it's
Job done.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. I find a peace about doing laundry. Our kids are at a place where they just throw their things in their closet.
There's
And,
a lot of laundry to do.
There's a lot of laundry. That's also the other thing. It doesn't end. So, all right. How about when it comes to the fall and football season? Are you an NFL guy or college guy?
I'm gonna go college.
College. And team you're cheering for?
Bearcats.
Bearcats? Okay. Because you got some South Carolina history, but not kind of root.
Yeah, I'll be a good husband and pull for them when they're on.
When they're
but I'd prefer to be watching the Bearcats for sure.
All right. And then would you rather, let's see, how about would you rather stick to the plan, like we're going to do this, or just kind of go with the flow when it comes to, stick
I'm
with
a
the
process planner, so
So
I've tried to come off the planning recently, but struggling.
you're struggling. So would you rather be sticking with the plan, or that, like, if you don't design the plan, are you going to stick with the plan, or are you going to?
Once I know the plan, I'm pretty good at sticking to it because I've gotten my mindset on it, so I'm gonna stick to that.
Stick to that. I've gone on some mission trips with guys like you, and it's been hard. Yeah.
We're difficult, I know.
Let's just say God stretches you. All right. All right. How about this or that? An early morning quiet time or late night reflection?
Late night.
Late night reflection. Okay. And then, what's one spiritual practice that maybe recently, or maybe it's been something you've been doing for a while, that's just making an impact on your life right now?
Yeah, been doing a New Testament study with one of my buddies.
Yeah.
And that's been really good just because we've been reading it together. And then every week or two we jump on the phone and talk about it, debrief, and just really makes you think deeper, but then also get a different perspective from somebody else too, which is helpful.
Yeah. So where are you at in the New Testament right
We
now?
just finished it. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we just finished it, and now we're talking about what we're going to start next.
Nice. So I know when we've talked, and part of like kind of setting up this conversation was that you're just in a season of transition right now. And so can you catch us up on that just a little bit so that we kind of know like where you've been, and then we'll talk about that journey some, and then kind of where we're at like currently today?
Yeah. So roughly 2 months ago, agreed to step away from my position with the company I was working for, and had nothing planned, had no leads, and really just took a leap of faith, I would say, for the first time in a long time, honestly. And so I just knew that it wasn't the right position for me And so walked away, and for the last 2 months, I've been spending time on myself, enjoying time, but then also, applying for jobs.
Yeah.
So it's not a great market right now to be applying. So there's been a lot of no's, a lot of not even getting interviews, and I think it's really been testing me recently of just, trusting the process, trusting the Lord that everything's gonna work out, and also growing to learn how to hear no more often.
Yeah, which is not easy. It's no's one of those words, it's hard to hear and it's hard to say. Like, yeah, and as someone who likes to stick with a plan or know the plan, I'm sure this has been a little bit of a, I don't know, challenging season? Is that a fair word? Or what would how would
Y
you label it?
it depends on the day.
Yeah.
There's been good days and bad days, and I would say the bad days, it's hard. You get told no, you don't get an interview, and I had a plan of how everything was gonna work out, and, I think that's where I try to reflect back and say, "Okay, what is the Lord doing in me right now?" And there's a lot of positives. I think that's where I'm trying to focus on right now is, yes, I don't have a plan, things aren't going to plan, but He's working in me, right?
Yeah.
And I can't be so structured, I can't be the one in control. I think that's what I've taken away from this whole season right now is it's been challenging, it hasn't been fun, but I know that I'm growing throughout it.
Yeah, for sure. So, was there like, was there like an impetus or something that, like what kinda changed in your life where you said it's time for a season? Were you like were other people advising you to do that? Was that like an internal dialogue or
Yeah, my wife, Sydney, and I we were working together,
Mhm.
at the same company, and she walked away and started a new career, and I just through watching her start her new career, I saw so much joy and happiness
Mm,
come from her. And I did a lot of reflecting during that time and realized that, I was probably doing my job for the wrong reasons.
mm,
Title, compensation, different things like that.
yeah,
And I just had to be honest with myself.
yeah,
And I wasn't in a healthy position emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And I had to be honest with that. And I had to be honest that I have to trust the Lord and what He's doing in me and through me and for me in the future. And it took time for me to get there, but I was proud that I got to that point of, okay, I need to truly let go and trust the Lord. And
which is not easy.
it's not easy. It's not easy. And, I'll be honest, there's days where I'm second guessing my decision of did I make the right decision?
Yeah,
But it would have been easy to just stay there and continue to do what I was doing. I'm going through the tough times now, but I do see myself growing. And I think I'm going to be a better person, better husband, better father when the kids come one day throughout this whole season.
yeah. Yeah, I know what and some of like the, like marriage counseling that I'll do or like kind of premarital counseling, I guess actually is we'll sit down with like somebody who's engaged and we'll talk about how just doing the hard thing, it's not bad because it's hard. In fact, some of the things that we do in life are some of the best things or some of the most difficult things to go through, right? And so, as someone who's in the middle of it, I don't know if you feel that yet, but I know my hope is that on the other side of this, you're gonna look back, as you said, for your family and yourself, and you're gonna be like, yeah, like this is forming me into like who God's created me to be by saying yes to these things. Um, yeah. So you talk about being a planner. You talk about so what's it like to make a transition where you have to let go? Like because you can make the best of plans, but as you said, the market's hard right now, and so you're having to do the best with what you've got out there. So, do you have a plan? You're working the plan as somebody, or
I think the first step was I had to admit that I wanted to be in control.
Mm,
And I think it was one of those as time went on, I started to realize that I wanted to be in control more than I probably thought I did.
yeah,
And now I have all this free time of, okay, how do I continue to grow and not try to be in control, but how do I use my time wisely?
yeah,
And I think that's the balance that I'm trying to find right now is I still put together a plan for the day of, okay, go to the gym at this time, apply to jobs for X amount of hours type of thing, but trying to not just be so structured and rigid from that standpoint
yeah,
and allowing some flexibility.
yeah. So, like one of the things I'm curious about as we're talking, and I'm just thinking is that the thought literally just flew out of my head, and I don't like that. So I'm thinking about just how, like, you had mentioned that, like, part of the reason you were doing the work you were doing was because of the title or some of these things, which are you give off the appearance to people. And so has this been challenging maybe in this season for you where you're like, I don't have these things, like the title under my business, like my name on the business card or like that sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, there's been days where it's been hard to swallow, like the longer time goes without a job, more
Yeah.
people know that you don't have a job. And I've felt embarrassed certain days of like, my wife's working and I'm just staying at home type of thing. And I think that's where I've just realized recently is we are formed by different things in society. And I have to know that the Lord's working in me right now. And it's not about the title. It's not about,
Yeah.
a certain company or job. And I think I've come to terms with that recently. But right off the bat, when I walked away from the company, like I struggled with that
I'm sure that, yeah, that's got to be.
because it was that was kind of my identity,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was my identity, and it was probably too much my identity. I put too much stock into that, honestly, and that's kind of what I was known for. And I was proud of myself when we had good days and stuff like that. But as I reflect back, it wasn't healthy.
Yeah. So even I'm assuming, but make sure I'm not making a wrong assumption. So good days, things were good, but then on bad days, you also own that as well to
Oh
say
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and it was a roller coaster at times, and I don't do roller coasters, right? I like to be. I say all the time, I like to be even keeled, level headed. Like, don't get too high, don't get too low, and it was a roller coaster for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So how, because you weren't doing this alone. So how has like Sydney, your wife, come along, you in this journey, and like what has that been like for you guys as a couple?
Yeah, I always thought we were close and we made a good team.
Hmm.
And I would say over the last year, we've just grown so much closer and stronger together. When she was going through her transition, she also hurt her ankle playing basketball, and that was very much me being there for her support and, uplifting her and getting her to where she needs to be physically, but then also with her new job. And now I feel like she's stable with her new job, and now she's kind of pulling me along too. It's just nice to have that partner to balance each other out, right? And I think I read something one time that marriage isn't fit, right? It's some days it's 80-20, other days it's 60-40. And I think that's what we're learning is, okay, some days, I need to bring more to the table and other days she does.
Yeah. So if you were gonna like look at where you're at today and kind of maybe try to like zoom out, and if you were gonna name or like rattle off a couple things that you'd say, you know what, I think maybe the Lord's like teaching me this in this season. What are some like the words or maybe the lessons that come to mind for you, and and maybe you and Sydney as well?
Yeah. Patience.
Yeah.
Um,
But what about patience specifically? Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I think it goes back to having the plan, right? I mean, just patience that something's going to happen, but it's just not the right timing right now.
yeah,
And with that, I think trust is another word of just trusting that everything's going to work out. Career wise, family wise, etc.
yeah,
Um, I would say releasing control. Those all go together, but I think that's the big one is just allowing whatever happens happens.
yeah.
And just know that we're blessed and we're going to be taken care of.
Yeah. So, patience is one of those ones, it's almost become like cliche to say, like, don't pray for patience, right? Because it's something that we just struggle with in this like instantaneous thing. And trust is super difficult because, as you said, like there came this moment where I just had to kind of like let go and not having, the next branch to hang on to per se. And so you're in the season of growing. I know you mentioned earlier that the Bible study that you've been doing with your friend has been just really good. You guys are kind of trying to figure out what's next. Um, and then when we talked on the phone earlier, I remember you were talking a little bit about your prayer life. And so I want to talk about what your prayer life has kind of looked like recently, because if I'm remembering correctly, it was a little bit kind of unique. And we could maybe even go all the way back to when you were working before and what that was like and kind of your morning prayer time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's when I started to realize that, I wasn't in a clear state of mind. So worked for the company for 4 years, and it felt like every morning. It probably wasn't every morning, but I'd get out of the shower and just, the Lord was talking to me, right?
Mm.
I mean, I would have this idea, I'd have that idea, and Sydney would get so jealous of like just how things would come to me,
Yeah.
right? And it was just that quiet time in the morning, and it was uninterrupted, and just was so blessed and didn't really realize it how clearly the Lord was speaking to me,
Yeah.
and just giving me direction and answers. And then it got really blurry, and I felt like I wasn't hearing the word at all. And I had lunch with Chris one day, and I was just talking to him, and he said, I think that's a perfect example of you're probably not right. You're not in the right spot right
Yeah.
now. And it's one of those that you just go through the motion, you go through your job, you go through your life, and it had been months since I had that uninterrupted morning time where I heard the voice, and that's when I realized, wow, that was just another confirmation to me of like I'm not in the right spot, right? And so I've really tried recently to clear the mind and just be uninterrupted again. And some days are better than other days, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm getting back to where I should, and that's a refreshing feeling.
Yeah. Do you find it's for you, is it creating space for it or like what's helpful for you right now as far as like getting some of that clarity of mind? Or is there like, do you have a rhythm that you get into on a regular kind of daily
Yeah.
basis?
I think for me, in the mornings is the best for me just because like I haven't been exposed to a lot of things. I haven't seen a lot of things. I haven't heard a lot of things. Haven't really even talked to anybody, right? So it's just I think once you get going in the day, it's just so much harder. And I'm good at reflecting at night, but it's completely different
That
than
fresh mind that's not been bombarded with whatever the message is that's out there, to have some of that clarity. So, so you've got just kind of that morning time of, and I'm assuming, is it a quiet time or is it like, I don't know, people do things differently. And one of our like hopes with this is that we help people either be encouraged with their practices that they're doing currently as we're talking about and being in this season of formation, but also like helping people to realize like, oh, I'd never thought about that before. So, do you have like a playlist that you're popping on in the morning that just really kind of helps you like set the tone for the day or?
Yeah, watching my wife and kind of how she operates, I think that's where I realize I'm different is she does it all at once, right?
Yeah.
So she wakes up and she has her quiet time and she reads and she listens to music. And for me, I like doing it all at different times personally.
Yeah.
So in the morning, like I just really want to be by myself uninterrupted and just hear what, the Lord has to tell me.
Yeah.
And then now with some free time, I like to read during the day, and read a couple, verses, chapters from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And then throwing in the music, I've been driving more, and that's really where I've been going from that standpoint. Is I used to listen to the radio a lot, and now I have some playlists that I like to listen to. So
Yeah.
I just think that's really helped me too. Just continue to be engaged throughout the day.
Yeah.
Everybody can do it differently, but I think the multiple touch points throughout the day has really been helping.
Yeah. And you said you've been doing some reading. I don't know, is there anything that, I don't know, just that is like a standout like resource or something that's just been really life-giving to you? Or you mentioned that
Yeah.
reading through the New Testament. Is there a specific plan that you were looking at?
Yeah, so it was the New Testament in 60 days.
Okay.
And I think that was good because again of my structure and planning side of things
Yeah.
that you knew what you had to read and then there's questions to answer.
Yeah.
And that was really good for me just because you can always have excuses of why, oh, it's been a long day or you have to do this, that. And
Yeah.
when there's a plan and a structure to follow, that's been really good for me just from the standpoint of the accountability piece, honest.
Yeah.
So I think that helps for me. again, other people are different and they can just sit down and read and
Yeah.
not need a lot of motivation. But I'll be honest, I need that structure and motivation more than some people.
And the guy you're doing with that, is that a local guy that you're able to connect with, or is that some, like
Outside of Louisville, actually.
okay.
So that's been good. Just a natural touch point to
Yeah.
stay in touch with, and have those conversations as well.
Yeah, having somebody to walk through it with you
Exactly.
and that sort of thing is super helpful. We talked about it a little bit, but just how you started kind of to hear from the Lord, and do you feel like you're hearing from the Lord again, like with some of this clarity, and some of that time? And
I do.
yeah,
Yeah. Not as frequently as I used to or I'd probably like to, but
yeah,
it's coming back. And I think that's again an example of just the patience piece, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's coming back and I should be blessed from that standpoint. And just continuing to trust the process.
yeah. I'm kind of, I don't know. A while back, I got the opportunity to teach here at White Oak on listening and our listening in prayer, and that was one of those ones where we looked at Samuel and how he had not like heard the Lord's voice and trying to decipher all this stuff. So, for you, what's that been like to say, "Oh, I think the Lord is speaking to me"? Um, yeah, like how'd that start, maybe, or how'd you identify it at first, maybe for
Yeah.
somebody? Yeah,
Give credit to, my wife. There was a lot of times where again I would just hear a direction, an idea, and she was just continuing to be amazed by the ideas that I was bringing to the table, and they just come to me. And she said, "That's the Lord." And it was one of those things that you think you realize it, you think you're aware of it, but I think the light bulb went off when she said that,
yeah,
and that's when I think I took it a step further, appreciated it more from that standpoint because, it had been happening probably for years, and
yeah.
it's just one of those things that you don't really realize it,
Didn't realize this was
honestly.
happening. Yeah,
So I had to articulate it and, Sydney said something and next thing you know, I connected the dots and that's when I was like, wow, this is really cool.
yeah. So when she connected the dots for you, did that change anything, or was it just kind of maybe like a affirmation of what was already there? Where you're like, oh, like I'm gonna continue down this road, because you did mention like things got a little blurry or things got a little like fuzzy there, and now it's starting to kind of come back. So,
Yeah. I think I appreciate it even more when I realized it, right?
yeah,
I also think it humbled me of like, it's not me with all these great ideas, right? Which is good. And then lastly, I think more than anything, it made me trust it more and not second guess myself
yeah,
because I'm like, you know what? I'm not making these things up. Like, this is directly from the Lord and
yeah.
I should take this with confidence. So I think those were the big things.
I, I forget. I wish I could remember who they were talking about, but I was reading this book recently, and one of a famous historical figure, and they were just talking about how how do you know that it's the Lord speaking to you, and they're like, "Well, I hear it in my head," and well, couldn't that just be your own imagination? And they're like, "Well, no, the Lord gave me my imagination, and so He can speak to me through my imagination. That's what He's always done." And it was just one of these kind of aha moments, like, 'cause I think we get wrapped up in our heads sometimes, right? Where it's like, "Is this a me idea? Is this the Lord?" How do I discern some of these things? And I'm sure, like, this conversation, some people are going to hear it and be like, "Yes, I want to know more how to hear the Lord or discern this is the Lord's voice or not." There, I think will be one of those things that comes out of it. Um, you know, like, for some people, because we've talked about this, at White Oak for a while, and we've seen it, and, I mean, it's not a surprise that across the board, people are dealing with, like, anxiety, and there's lots of reasons to be anxious, for sure, and then there's some things where people are just they're anxious, and it's in an unhealthy place, but you kinda described, like, even in the midst of this season that you're in, which for some people would be freaking out, you've had maybe like an abnormal peace through this season. What's that been like for you, and maybe other people that you're like running into?
Yeah. I think I think if this was a couple years ago, I would be freaking out and it'd be unhealthy.
Yeah,
But I just think it's a testament to how much I've grown in the people in my life and
yeah,
our community. And I think that's where I know that I'm gonna be taken care of, right? And I think that again, some days are better than others. Some days are more frustrating than others, but just knowing that continuing to do what I'm supposed to do, we're supposed to do. And it doesn't make sense now.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of things that have happened in my life where it's hard and it doesn't make sense. And then I look back and I'm like, that's why that
That's what was
worked
going
out the
on
way
or why
that it
we're
did.
yeah.
And I think that's where I've just grown a lot. And I think that, it's just another challenge that I have to face and accept. And I just have to put my head down and trust the process and
Yeah.
trust the Lord and know that everything's going to work out. But I also think it's challenging too because a lot of times we hear about the miracles,
Mhm.
right? And the things that worked out and what people went through. And I know that just as many people are in the valley and they're struggling. And I think that's where it's not easy to talk about. It's not easy to admit, but it's reality. And hopefully that can be a light and an encouragement for others because it's not fun.
Yeah.
It is stressful, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm not trusting the process and trusting the Lord, then what am I doing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm continuing to try to tell myself.
And I don't know if you have any of these that come to mind right away, but have you had some of those, or would you be willing to share? Maybe is a better way to say it. Would you be willing to share some of the times that you've seen the Lord show up? Because one of the things as we're sitting here talking that it occurs to me is the amount of, and maybe you don't feel this, but the amount of faith and trust that you have in the Lord. It seems like He's shown up already in the past, and so you're saying, why would He fail now? Like that sort of thing. Do you have any of those examples that you'd be willing to just kind of rattle off? Where like, yeah, he's been
Yeah.
good.
You know, I got to a dark spot towards the end of my time with my previous company and was getting defensive and aggravated and I just wasn't myself. And Sydney told me, like you've got to come out of this and free yourself up because you're not going to do any good when you're applying for jobs.
Mm.
And I kind of brushed her off, I was like, well, like, I can handle both type of thing. And a couple weeks later, I got a job interview with a company that really I didn't think I deserved, to be honest with you. And was in that interview, and the interviewer, the hiring manager, was kind of writing me off about 25 minutes in
Okay.
for an hour interview. And at that moment, he said, you realize that the account managers and the sellers have more experience than you and have more franchise development experience than you. So why should we hire you?
Mm-hmm.
And that is when I just felt the Lord over me, giving me the words to speak and the patience and the calmness. And I just very calmly responded back and acknowledged that he was right and just talked about everything that I can bring to the table. And I think that's when the light bulb went off for me of like, Sydney was right. And I just think just pulling myself out of the situation that I was in previously and freeing myself up just gave me so much calmness and peace.
Yeah.
And that wasn't me. I mean, that was the Lord just giving me that ability to be a better person, be a better Christian, and not get defensive. I would say that's an example recently of just, again, moving through me. I didn't get the job, but I did a good job in that interview. I did all that I could do, and I handled it the way that I needed to. And I think those were the small wins that I'm noticing that I just have to continue to appreciate and know that at some point those wins are gonna
Yeah. Yeah.
tally up.
They're gonna tally up, and it's almost like what I'm hearing you say is that it's been there, but I would say like the Lord's continuing to refine some of like your character in addition to like your craft, and so, um, and from our few conversations, like I appreciate your character, but even that moment, you're like I could have said something different, or I could have been defensive in that moment, but to respond in humility, or to with some grace there to that response, and to do that, and so the Lord's continuing to form you. You know, you talk about how the Lord has been speaking to you through some different things, has been sometimes clearer rather than others, but also one of the things I appreciate is you said, I've been in the season also where I'm reaching out to some mentors and talking to them, which I think is helpful. It's biblical, right, to have wise counselors around you. Has it been difficult at all for you to tell the difference between when the Lord's speaking and a mentor is giving you an idea, or has that been a challenge for you in this season?
Great question. I would say in the past, I've been guilty of leaning on my mentors more than the Lord.
Mhm.
And I think that's something recently that I've really challenged myself of, okay, how can I balance that better? Right. I mean, I have people in my life, I have mentors in my life. They're smart, they're experienced, but also knowing when to turn to the Lord and when to look for guidance from the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think, going back to your point of refining my craft, I think that's another example of not going all in on my mentors. And how can I find that balance?
So, yeah, the ability for you to tell the difference between, okay, this is the Lord speaking or it's a mentor that's coming in. So, have you had any of those moments where you get, differing opinions, and so you have to try to, like, discern which way is the right way to go?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely at times. I think where it's not so much, the guidance or the direction. I think it's combining the two. And I think that's where I realize I'm very blessed from the standpoint of, the Lord talking to me and telling me to reach out to somebody that I didn't think to reach out to. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's been really cool to why should I reach out to that person? Right. And again, I think I gave myself credit for that in the past of like, yeah, I just knew that I should call this person.
Yeah.
But in reality, the Lord was speaking to me and telling me that's who I should be talking to about this situation. And in the past, I would say I talked to too many mentors and got too many opinions. And that's when you're a little bit more lost than you have clarity, honestly. So I think that's something that I've really done a good job of trying to listen to the Lord and not reach out to too many mentors
Yeah.
to get more confused than I already am.
So for anybody who maybe, would want to have, like, maybe, like, "I would love to have a mentor or mentors," like, do you have, like, just off the top of your head, like, a couple maybe criteria or thing like, "This is what I'm looking for, in somebody that I want to be able to have a voice into my life or to speak
Yeah.
into it." Yeah.
Yeah. I would say most of my mentors have been former bosses or coworkers that just I've worked with. They've seen me in that environment, but I've also opened up personally too. I think that's the big thing for me with a mentor is being able to know who I am and kind of how I operate in the professional setting, but also knowing me for who I am as a person too.
Yeah.
Because I think that's important, right? Of being able to speak on both parts. I think the biggest thing is there's anybody can be a mentor. I think it's just you have to get out there and you have to have conversations, and some people are going to help you more than others. And I think that's something I've noticed is I've been having conversations and exploring mentors for the last 15 years. So you kind of start to realize what you like, what you don't like, and I lean towards people that are going to be honest with me and just tell me what I need to hear, not so much what I want to hear. And I think that's a good mentor, in my opinion.
And so that you just said, I've been looking for mentors for 15 years. Do you find yourself on the other side at this stage in life where you're like, I've got people who are speaking in my life, but do you have some others that you're kind of speaking into as far as some mentees?
Yeah, it's been cool to have that full circle moment. So the higher ed in me, I've had former students that have kind of, I would say, reached out to me from the mentor side of things, and it's just cool to take what I've learned from my mentors and be able to apply that to the mentees, and I just really enjoy that. I like being a mentor and coaching people, and not sure how good I am at it, but it's nice to be able to get back from all the benefits that I received from my mentors.
So off the top of your head, what's one, two, maybe three, three's a lot, one or two pieces of wisdom that a mentor or mentors have given you that you pass on to other people?
Um, just treat people how you want to be treated, which is so cliche, but it's just, and I think that's a good Christian reminder of like, you just need to do the right thing, right? And then I think something else is just knowing who you are and who you aren't. And I think people can try to be everything for everyone, both personally and professionally. And you're not going to be happy that way, right? I mean, I think you need to narrow in on your skill sets and your craft. And that's something I've learned through mentors is they acknowledge what they're good at and they admit what they're not great at. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's something for young high school and college students that aren't sure what they want to do. They're not sure what they're good at. You don't have to be perfect at everything. Just what gets your interest and what are you skilled at and pour into that.
And that's something, I mean, we talk about it some in the church, but as far as like, there's all sorts of different gifts and passions that we have. And so, it's not everybody has to be able to do everything in the church, but that there are some things that you care about or that you're more gifted in. And so when we all come together, whether it's in the building or out in the community, it's pretty incredible to see that diversity of gifts and talents and work together. So I know, we're going to be kind of praying for you as far as, getting into the right spot. But it's been neat to hear from you some of the ways that God has been shaping you through what has been like not an easy season. Whether it be from I don't have that title anymore to sitting in an interview and hearing the no's, which are uncomfortable. But at the same time, I appreciate you being so honest with us to say, yeah, but I understand that even in the no or even without the title, that the Lord is still shaping me and that He's preparing something good for me. Because someone else may be listening to this and they need to be reminded of that, right? That even if something's difficult, that does not mean that it's not good. And so I think you've got a couple opportunities that are on the table right now, I think right now, that you're looking for. And so would you say that as you're looking at these jobs, are you approaching those differently than maybe you would have a year ago when you're looking at like careers that you're going to be applying for?
Absolutely. And I think that's why I've gotten a lot of no's is, early on I was still applying for those titles and those salaries.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not who I am, right? And I think that's something that we have such great community in our lives. And, you don't want to compare, you don't want to get jealous, but you also want to acknowledge why people are happy. And, and I think that's something that Sydney and I have acknowledged is we probably put our careers as too much priority. And let's take a step back and reflect on what we need, what we want. And, it's not the title, it's not the compensation. We know that we're going to be happy if we're doing what we love. And I would say the last couple weeks, that's really shifted my approach to applying for jobs. And there's been some jobs that I never would have applied for before. But I think that I'll enjoy doing it and I'd be good at it. And it would bring a lot more peace in our personal life and, our marriage and our family. And I think that's just another example of, you think you know what you want or what you need, and God just has a funny way of telling you that you don't really know. And I think that's what I've been challenging myself on. Okay, I'm getting told no for different reasons. Instead of getting defeated or frustrated, how can I shift that attention? And I think the last couple of weeks I've done that, and doesn't make it easier, but it keeps the faith going, I would say.
Well, and it sounds like, that through this process, almost like success is like being redefined, or it looks differently than maybe what it looked like on the front end of this. And so, like you said, finding something that you enjoy doing, that you're wired to do, and that it propels you and your family forward is more of the impetus than, hey, like I've got this title or this salary package or these sorts of things. So I'm gonna ask you to put the mentor hat on again here. So for someone who is maybe in a season of just waiting, as you are, like you're sitting in it with them right now, okay, or maybe even just uncertainty, what word of encouragement or what words would you want to share with them?
Um, I would say community is huge, and I would say activity.
Yeah.
I think activity, and that's what I've realized is not only spiritually, but just trying to take advantage of the time physically, working on myself physically and applying for jobs. I think those are the things that I am blessed that I have more time now. So how do I take advantage of the time? And I think, using it with good activity, like I mentioned, and then also the community piece. I don't think that we're not meant to do it alone. And if you're trying to do it alone, it's going to be miserable. And I think that's another area that I've shifted the last month or so is I was prideful of, I had all these accomplishments, I had this experience, and I can go and get a job on my own. And I've been humbled in that aspect as well of it's not in control and maybe I do need to lean on people. And I think that was hard at first too, admit that I don't have a job, to admit that I need help, to admit that I've been told no. And I think you have to come to terms with the truth.
Yeah.
But through the truth with activity and community, I think you'll be in a better position.
Yeah. I know, like, you guys, you're from here originally, but also moving away and coming back and kind of finding a faith community to get plugged into. It sounds like, and I mean, from our conversations, like, that's been a priority for you guys, is to say we need like a church community, and then also to find like a smaller community where you guys can be known and have those people. And so, I think maybe the last thing that I just want to maybe end with is, again, to encourage somebody here. So, what was something that was helpful for you guys to get plugged in and get that community coming in as somebody who's an outsider? Yeah.
Our small group, and give credit to Sydney. She's the one that kind of drug me along at first. I was resistant, and I'm more the introvert. She's more the extrovert. And now 2 years in, I'm so thankful and blessed for our small group. There's weeks that we just sit around and laugh and have fun, and that's the humor people need. And there's other times that we lean on each other and support people, and we'll do cookouts and different things. And it's just nice knowing that if something's going on, you can pray together on that Monday night when you get together, or you can send a message in the group me, and you're just so much stronger with a group of 15 people than 1 or 2 people. So I think that's been the biggest thing is, Sundays have been great. The churches, both locations have been phenomenal. But when it comes down to it, it's our small group at the end of the day.
Yeah. Where you get to be seen and known, and you get to know and see other people, and to have that. Well, man, thank you for coming in here. I know, just like all the cards on the table, when we talked initially, we said, hey, let's wait and kind of see how the story develops, and the story is still developing. And so I appreciate you coming in and saying, like, hey, this is real, this is raw, this is where I'm at, and the story's not finished. And so I'm interested and excited to see kind of how this plays out. I'm sure you are even more so. So let me pray for you and pray for Sydney, and then that'll be a wrap. So
Thank you.
Lord, I thank you for the way that you work in our lives. Sometimes we see it, and sometimes we don't see it. And God, I pray that you would continue to give Andrew and Sydney eyes to see the way that you're at work in and on their lives in this period of waiting and maybe a little bit of uncertainty, and to be reminded and know that you are a good God who has good plans for them. And for anybody, God, who hears this message and is also sitting in that place, Lord, I pray that I pray that same thing for them. Give them eyes to see and ears to hear the way that you are working around them, because you are the God who goes with us, and you're also the God who goes before us, and help us to remember and know those truths. I just pray for Andrew specifically right now. God, I pray that the right job, the right interview, the right interviewer, that it's all going to come together, because we know, Lord, that you can see and know all, and so that you're preparing that for him. So do the work in and on Andrew in this season, and develop him into the man, the husband that you created him to be. We love you, Jesus, and it's in his name that we pray all these things. Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it.
Wasn't too painful, was it?
Not bad.
Not bad?
Hopefully I didn't screw up too bad.